So, Amie,
Zachary.
Avery,
Zachary.
have you guys had any experience with this Canadian wildfire smoke?
I
Yeah, I
saw
mean,
that it was coming this way.
I was at first really concerned about the extent to which this was going to impact me and mine. You know me, I'm an athlete. That's like the first thing people learn about me. Zach's lifting things, Zach's running from things, running after things, running towards things. But I'll be honest, with all this smoke in the air, all this haze,
Yeah, I feel it.
I feel it in my lungs. I feel it in my lungs. But you know me, I'm an optimist. I think of these lungs as being half full, not half empty
Of smoke.
of smoke. And
I also decided it would be a good idea to burn some sticks and things that have been piling up over the winter. So I did that yesterday in the midst of
be the
air
problem
quality.
you want to see in the world. That's
Right.
I really like that. I think that's really good.
We just add to it.
So I was, but I was thinking about it, right? And there are like clearly some things that would be better, that are better with less capacity in your lungs.
And what would those be?
I'm so glad you asked. For example, neglecting yard work. Really great with only half a
Can't
lung.
do it. Yeah.
Right.
Primo time to neglect chores. Sitting down with a cup of coffee. Oh, it hits different when you got less lung capacity.
You could just take up smoking if you really enjoy it.
If you really
Why-
enjoy doing things with half a lung.
It's actually why I live here. Why, it's all about optimizing. It's all about bigger, faster, stronger with me. You know that. And obviously, why would I get a expensive habit like smoking when I get the thing naturally imported from Canada?
That's true. Yeah.
Why
Just-
smoke a pack a day when you can just go outside?
Iowa, fields of haze.
Feels it is.
Shout out Canada. Shout out Justin Trudeau for sending this Canadian scented perfume.
Freedom to smoke.
Welcome to Cornhole Champions, a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line, where we throw bags at the state's biggest stories. I'm Zachary Oren Smith. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm joined today by Iowa Starting Line's the great Amie Rivers. Hello, Amie.
Hello, Zachary.
And fresh in from the internet, where they've been taking things and cutting things and ripping them and putting them and sticking them on the very screen in front of you. Avery Staker, how are you, Avery?
I'm doing great after that introduction. I feel like Dr.
How-
Frankenstein or something.
Good
How
intro.
deep into it were you? Like, oh man, he really didn't write these down. Man, he's really just
Off the cuff.
As soon as you just said the great Amie Rivers, I was like, he didn't.
He didn't do it.
There's
Yeah,
no
this
prep.
we're cooking. It's a
Can't wait.
stormy edition, and we got quite a lot planned for this episode. It's been a busy weekend. Our first story: U.S. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa put herself in hot water last week when she told angry constituents worried about Medicaid cuts that, quote, "We're all going to die," a comment that made an already hostile town hall explode into boos and shouts. We have this video.
When you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible, so they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So,
The whole mess started when voters were grilling her about supporting Trump's massive spending bill that could cut safety net programs while giving huge tax cuts to the wealthy. Amie, you were in the room when it happened. Can you describe kind of what was happening at the time?
So Joni comes out and she's seated at a tall chair, and she's basically like taking questions from the audience. These questions were people that had signed up to ask a question, and her staff is just calling them out. So as they're being asked, the audience is sort of pushing back on some of her answers. And so this had already been happening for some time. And then she got to a question about Medicaid cuts in Trump's big, beautiful bill that is, of course, now in the Senate, and the Senate's going to have to take it up. So her first response to that was to be like, well, you know, if it's not specifically related to spending, it goes through what we call a bird bath. Like, apparently a former Senator Byrd or whatever, like, instituted some rule that, like, if it's not spending or appropriation related, the Senate's not going to take it up. And the House is just kind of like, you know, putting these freewheeling things in. So as she's talking about this, people are like, yeah, but the cuts are specifically in there. Like, that is a spending cut. And so she's also being like, but it's only going to be this 1.4 million undocumented immigrants who, by the way, undocumented immigrants not eligible for Medicaid, except in emergency circumstances. So basically, there's nobody to kick off because they're not on there. And Zachary, you pointed this out. The Congressional Budget Office actually estimates that over the next 10 years, it's going to be something like 13 million, 14 million people that are expected to be kicked off Medicaid. That's going to include folks like you and me. I mean, that's going to be a lot more Americans and other people that are going to be kicked off. So people are pushing back on this. And even if that wasn't true, kicking people off Medicaid means, as one woman put it, people will die. And as soon as she said that, Ernst was like, well, we're all going to die.
And she says it with like this smirk. I think this is a person that came into office with famous for her Joni Ernst making them squeal.
Yeah.
That was like kind of her one of her big platform things, going after pork barrel politics with her castration scissors, right? But in some ways, right, like the smirk was surprising enough. But then she kind of doubled down, right? There's this she followed up on Instagram stories the next day in a graveyard with this video.
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize for a statement that I made yesterday at my town hall. I was in the process of answering a question that had been asked by an audience member when a woman who was extremely distraught screamed out from the back corner of the auditorium, "People are going to die." And I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well. But for those that would like to see eternal and everlasting life, I encourage you to embrace my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
What'd you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was not an apology whatsoever. I mean, it just doubled down, making excuses and also mocking people. Like, she's talking about, like, oh, glad I didn't mention the tooth fairy. She thinks people are making it up. She's the one making up the stat that undocumented immigrants are receiving Medicaid. Like, this is something that Medicaid.gov will tell you. They cannot receive Medicaid. So, like, I don't know why she's making fun of other people. Like, do they just get their news from, like, non-governmental sources inside the government? Like, so, I mean, she doubled down on her callousness, basically. And yeah. And then said we needed Jesus.
And then said we needed Jesus. And I'll say that to her point, like, I will say that there is a certain amount of Medicaid fraud each year, right? Despite being difficult to track, this is something that we are aware happens. But to be clear, right, at this level of fraud does not exceed the 13.5 million people that are estimated to be pushed off Medicaid over the 10 years of implementation of this bill. So we're talking orders of magnitude of difference there.
I'm also assuming that amount of fraud doesn't amount to the $1.1 trillion in tax breaks that the top 0.01% of Americans are going to be getting.
Totally. Well, and we're right now we're dealing with hospitals shutting down in the state of Iowa. We're dealing with fewer operators. And one of the, a really expensive department in many hospitals is the emergency room, right? And when people come in who aren't insured, right, when there is no reimbursement there, who eats those costs, right? Who's, and again, right, like we want healthcare going to people who need it, right? And I don't think I don't think any follower of Jesus Christ wants people suffering, not receiving care, right? I don't know, but I am religious, and this is something that I take really seriously, right? Which is like, what does the best of our tradition ask of us? And I mean, like, I don't know, right? Like, this ain't it.
Joni's Jesus says, pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Well, Joni's Jesus ought to read the Bible. U.S. Senator Joni Ernst recently announced she would hold her annual Roast and Ride, her major political fundraiser. That's a strong sign that she will run for re-election in 2026, unconfirmed, of course. Currently, we have 2 Democrats who've announced a run in opposition. Nathan Sage is one name that's been kind of going around, holding a lot of events. With this kind of blow up over the town hall, State Representative J.D. Scholten has thrown his hat in the ring. You can read my interview with J.D. Scholten at iowastartingline.com, and subscribe if you're listening to this but aren't subscribed to our newsletter. Go to cornholechampions.substack.com. You can read the full thing. Later this hour, catch Amie Rivers in her interview with the woman who said people will die at this town hall. That's India May. It's going to be a great interview, so I'm looking forward to that. And with that, let's take a break.